Chances are you got one of these. Either you hate it and you don't want to deal with it, or you love it as much as I do and you put it to use. Let me show you what I did. I'll be changing the format slightly here. I won't be speaking over these sound effects so that you can hear everything that I speak and so that these sound effects can sound cool. So as with any figure that you get to work on, it is best to disassemble it. And as you can tell, I have already removed the emblem. It is glued on very lightly, so a little bit of heat will relieve that pressure and remove the glue. Now, the belt itself was permanently glued. They used a lot of adhesive to keep this on, so I tried removing it and it began to tear, so I just left it on. Everything else came off very, very simple. The ball joints are great because they are easy to paint and there was no paint rub on these. It was really, really good. And of course, the knee joints, we are going to just touch up lightly. We don't have to take it apart because, well, the costume is gray. We're just going to be adding some shading to this to make it a little bit more dynamic. The elbow joints, fantastic. These are so awesome to work with because the paint rub is so easy to remove. You don't have to disassemble the actual figure. Again, we're using grays, it's going to work out fine. Same thing with the pegs here for the wrists, same situation. Now, the torso is a whole different story. It is not really designed to have an ab crunch. You can put one in here by cutting into it like all other figures, but if you're painting it, that belt is going to rub up against that abdomen and it's going to take off your paint. So if you're painting the figure, it's best not to do so. If you're only going to add light shading, you shouldn't worry too much, but really the actual crunch in here is going to remove some paint if you paint it. Now for video purposes, I have already gone ahead and done the shading here. There's a lot to cover in this video. And I went ahead and used epoxy sculpt to fill in the gaps, particularly on the emblem that I removed. Así es que utilicé la masa epoxy sculpt para poder rellenar los huecos, en este caso donde está el logotipo. Y también decidí separar las coyunturas para poder pintar entre las porciones que son difíciles de llegar a pintar. So I went ahead and ground off the joints on the knees only so that I could get into those areas and not have any paint rub. And earlier I did say I wasn't going to do that, but I decided to do so because it just made sense. And I only did that to the knees. So if you're going to make those cuts for the abs, this is the time to do it before you reassemble your figure and do any other work to it. And of course, You can cut at the bottom here where the trunks go onto at the front and the back of that peg, and the same thing for the top, and then the same thing on the inside of the chest. Does it give you a significant difference? It can. Are you really going to use it? That's all up to you. But if you're painting your figure, the abs crunches are going to damage your paint. So it's best not to do so if you're going to paint it. If you're just slightly going to add shading, you should be okay. Si vas a cortar la coyuntura para que tenga una pose más dinámica, este es el momento de hacerlo. Pero solamente funcionará si no lo pintas. Si vas a pintarlo, el cinturón que ves aquí va a tallarse con el abdomen y remover tu pintura. So I want to show you a side-by-side of what the figure looked like out of box, which I really do like, but it's not enough for me. I really wanted a blue version, and that's the one on the right. As you can tell, I did replace the head with a custom sculpt, which I went ahead and painted earlier, and I've had that one for several months. And as you can tell, it needs a cape. I really don't like the plastic capes because they don't have the dynamics of a wired cloth cape. Así es que quiero que vean una comparación lado a lado. El antes, como salió de la caja, así en el color gris, lo cual se ve muy bien, pero no lo suficiente para mí, no me llena. Quise tener la versión azul. Como has notado, he reemplazado el rostro con uno diferente que he pintado. Y ahora nos falta poner el emblema o logotipo en el pecho, y todavía nos falta una capa con más dinámica. Las capas de plástico sencillamente no tienen la dinámica que a mí me gusta. Now be advised that your rendition of this figure may be totally different. You may have a different tone of blue. You may have a larger logo or bat emblem. I went with the smaller one because that's what I grew up on. I didn't grow up on Frank Miller stories. I only found out about it in the 90s when it went on air with the Batman animated show. So no, I didn't use a large bat logo. You can do so if you would like to have it more comic accurate. I just wanted a Batman in blue. So let's be honest here, this accessory is useless. Let's fix it. So I decided to take a piece of rope, or I should say it's more of a lanyard, and I removed the interior of that lanyard, but it's really just a filler. You can actually just pull it straight out. And then I replaced it with a 26 gauge wire and glued it to the batarang. Now it's a useful accessory. De ser sinceros, el accesorio que nos dieron con esta figura es completamente inútil, así es que decidí arreglarlo con un alambre dentro de esta pieza de, bueno, digamos que es un lazo. Le quité la pieza interior, el algodón que está dentro, y entonces lo reemplacé con un alambre del calibre 26. Ahora es más útil. So no Batman is complete without a cape, whether it's black or blue, leather or cloth. And it took me a while to get to this material, but cotton is the best material because it holds the pleats really well. Ningún Batman es completo si no tiene su capa, y tardé bastante tiempo para llegar a este material. Es una capa de algodón y todos los pliegues son planchados a mano. I do have another video showing you how to make these capes. You can actually refer to one of those tutorials so you can actually get to this point. I will skip all of that in this video just because it's already so long. There's a lot to cover in here. Now if you want wire within the cape, you will have to sew it in and create a space for that wire. I ended up having 6 wires total into this cape. Debido a que tenemos mucho material que cubrir en este segmento, es mejor que regreses y veas uno de los tutoriales que ya están hechos de cómo hacer capas de este estilo. Pero como ves, si tú quieres tener alambres dentro de la capa, es necesario que hagas costura para que tengas el espacio para cada uno de esos alambres. Yo llegué a ponerle un total de 6 alambres a esta capa. So let's take a quick look at what the cape looks like in its relaxed form with the wires that are already installed. To me, it looks awesome. I really like the way the pleats make the cape stand out. Veamos cómo los pliegues en la capa, en su forma relajada, se ven con una dinámica. Ahora veámoslo extendiéndola. So let's extend the cape, let's have it flowing, and let's move those wires around. Remember, there's 6 wires in here so that it will really support the weight of the cape in any extension that you want it to have. So this is a larger cape, so you can extend it to the extreme and make it look very dynamic. And again, same thing with the accessory. Now that it has the wire, it looks that much better. Ahora, como observamos, tanto la capa como el accesorio que tienen alambre tienen una dinámica, una presencia mucho mejor en la repisa que vayas a poner tu figura. Now the question that many will ask is, how did you install this? Well, you can use glue, like this, Fabri-Tac glue. But again, glue is goopy, it's messy, you gotta wait for it to dry, etc. Anyway, I didn't use it on this, I used a different method. Before installing it and setting it in, I did reinforce the neck with stretch pleather because it will give a better fit around the neck. Para instalación de esta capa, utilicé un vinil como un forro dentro del cuello para que pudiera agarrarse más apretado alrededor del cuello y tuviera menos movimiento y aún no rayara la pintura. Pero puedes utilizar pegadura para poder adherir o fijar la capa en su lugar. Yo usé un método un poquito diferente. This is my method. I ended up making 2 small hooks out of the same wire that I installed in the cape. I looped those 2 hooks around the wire that's already inside the cape at the edge. Then I drilled out 2 small holes in the same diameter as those wires, and then I added super glue and put them in place. And as you can tell, this is my little gadget here. It's a 1/32 of an inch, and that's what I use to drill out those holes. Este es el método que yo utilicé para fijar la capa en esta figura. Hice 2 ganchos del mismo alambre que utilicé para la capa, los coloqué justamente en el mismo alambre que ya está dentro de la capa. Entonces perforé yo el pecho o el cuello con un taladro del mismo tamaño para entonces pegarlos con pega loca. Once you drill out the holes for those hooks, you can set a drop of super glue at the opening, and as you push down the hooks, it'll take the glue with it, and then it will dry in place. Una vez que perfores el pecho o el cuello, puedes entonces poner una gota de pega loca. Entonces al empujar el alambre hacia adentro se lleva el resistol o la pega loca y en unos minutos se queda seco y fijo. Now if you don't like that tab that shows up at the center of the collar, you don't have to have it. I just have it there for my purpose. It can come off at any time. You can just cut it right off. It's just to hold the collar in as it dries. So our Batman is not complete until he's got a logo. I didn't make this logo. I don't have a Cricut cutter. A good friend of mine does. She's got an Etsy page. And I ordered this logo from her, and she cut 2 of them out, the black and the yellow, and then put them together. And then she put them on a transfer tape with a backing tape so that it can ship to me. Now once you remove it off of the backer, leave it with the transfer tape on top so that you can actually place it onto the figure. Once you place it on the figure, only tack one side of it so that you can move it as you measure out left and right side to get the proper placement. Once it's in place where you like it, then you can rub it down and make sure it is down securely. These vinyl stickers are so much more durable than the water decals. Pues nuestro Batman no está completo si no tiene su logo en el pecho. Este no lo hice yo, lo mandé a hacer con una amiga que tiene una máquina Cricut que corta logotipos de vinil o cualquier otra figura que gustes. Son mucho más perdurables que los que son de agua. Tienes que recordar que estos son, digamos, permanente. En el momento que tú lo colocas, no lo pegues de una sola vez. Colócalo de tal manera que puedas moverlo hasta que tú lo tengas en el lugar que es adecuado, la misma distancia de un lado a otro, izquierda a derecha, y entonces cuando lo tengas seguro en su lugar, entonces puedes firmemente aplanar la calcamonía sobre la superficie y entonces remover la cinta de transferir para que quede fijo en su lugar. So this is what our figure finally looks like with his cape, his bat logo, and yeah, he's got that utility belt on the leg. And I made that out of epoxy sculpt with a silicone mold using the actual belt he's got on there already, and then painted it to match up. And then the band itself, that's an actual piece of yellow material that I glued together, and then I glued those resin pieces, or I should say the epoxy pieces that I created and molded and painted onto that belt. Así es que finalmente tenemos la figura terminada. Tenemos el logo, tenemos la capa, tenemos ahora el cinturón de utilidad que tiene en la pierna, que es un molde que hice de las mismas piezas que tienen el cinturón de la cintura. Entonces lo pinté y hice el cinturón pequeño amarillo de la pierna con una tela amarilla. So this part of the clip is only to show you the comparison between the blue and the black and gray bat. I know that people want to see it, so that's why it's here. But no, we are not touching any details on the gray and black bat. That's a different video. You can't have the bat in this story without Carrie Kelly. So take a look at the parts list for Carrie Kelly. This is actually my favorite figure in this line because of its posability. But let's talk about her cape. Esta es mi favorita figura de esta serie, pero vamos a hablar de la capa que ella tiene. So this beautiful cotton material, once again, is what I used for this particular cape. And you do need the collar off of the original plastic cape. That's what's going to hold it down and finish off that seam. Así es que utilicé el material de algodón nuevamente, en este caso color amarillo, y vas a necesitar el cuello de la capa original de plástico para finalizar el terminado de esta capa. Now once again, this is a half moon with pleats, and I just used the iron-on tape to make the seams, add the wire to the edges. There's no wire in the center, there's no wire at the bottom. That allows you to have a dynamic look and a relaxed look, and those pleats are ironed in one at a time individually. Esta capa es hecha de una media luna con un alambre a las orillas, lo cual pegué con una cinta que se plancha, y entonces esa es la manera que hice la bastilla totalmente alrededor de la capa. Cada uno de los pliegues lo tienes que planchar a mano. Eso es lo que te da el resultado que ves aquí. Oh, by the way, the glasses are just glued on. Heat and remove the glasses. Caliente remueve los gafas. Solamente tienen resistol y fácil de removerlos. So as long as we're talking about Robin capes, let me show you the wrong way to cut a cape. And this is how many times they come from the manufacturer. Déjame mostrarte cómo es la manera incorrecta de hacer un corte de una capa para un Robin. A veces llegan así de fábrica. So the whole purpose of buying this entire set was to build this horse, because he actually does ride the horse in the story. I did a little bit more with the horse that came in the package. Let me show you. And yes, Carrie Kelly can somewhat ride the horse. She can't reach the stirrups, but she can certainly, well, hold on to the reins that I replaced. I'll show you in just a minute what I did. Así que todo el propósito de comprar esta serie era para tener el caballo, porque en sí, Batman sí monta el caballo en la historia. Ahora aquí Robin, Carrie Kelly, sí puede montarlo, pero no puede alcanzar las piezas para poner los pies, pero sí puede sostener la rienda, y eso aún lo cambié más tarde. Deja mostrarte lo que hice con este caballo. The fact that this horse came in different pieces was very helpful, especially when it came to painting the saddle. And that was one of the things that I needed to work on. Now, let me show you the inside of the actual unit, or the torso of the body, because I also did something else to this. I didn't paint it, but I did set weights inside it to give it some more heft. Well, some more weight. So I took 1 ounce fishing weights and I put them inside. I put in a total of 8. So 2 on each side, and then the other half, the other 2 on each side, total of 8 ounces added in weight. Now it has more stability, and yes, it can still rear up and hold Batman. Now what I did paint was the saddle, all in dry brush. A few tones of brown, a little bit of white, a little dark wash to bring out some detail, and this is the final look. Lo que sí pinté fue la silla del caballo, con brocha seca, unos tonos de diferentes cafés, un poco de gris oscuro y negro para resaltar los detalles. En realidad eso fue todo. Y aquí tienes el resultado final. So let's do a quick recap of where we started out. A gray figure straight out of box, which most people hate for some reason. Now, we ended up with something completely different after we got done painting it. Así que hagamos un breve repaso de lo que se utilizó y dónde comenzamos. Comenzamos con una figura completamente gris y ahora resultamos con una figura completamente diferente. Por alguna razón a algunos no les gustan estas figuras gris. Carrie Kelly didn't require very much, just a quick cape replacement. That was about it. This is the easiest and best figure in the line. Los detalles que ocupaba Robin, que aquí Carrie Kelly, solamente era el reemplazo de una capa a tela. Y funcionó excelente. De mi opinión es que es la mejor figura en esta serie. The horse was the last piece in this series, and yes, this was the reason to get the entire set. It's up to you if you want to paint it and add the weights. El caballo fue la última pieza en este video, de hecho en esta serie, y si tú deseas pintarlo es cosa tuya, bueno, la silla del caballo, y aún ponerle las pesas dentro del cuerpo. Esa es tu decisión. So I'm going to leave you with some ending video of these three pieces. I hope that you learned something today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment area. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you here next time.